to say yes when Jesus calls you. And I want to throw this out there for you. Usually that calling is some kind of crazy adventure because it's not something that is normal to your life. But before we get there, I know you've been anticipating this for 2 weeks. It's time for a good preacher joke. You got to have one to cut the tension, right? I think something I learned just this past week that studies show that laughter is a key to you being healthy. Laughter helps you to get through hard times. It also helps you to make light of hard times, not in a rude kind of way, but sometimes all you can have is a laugh that can get you through. So I think your hearts will be more ready for a message if we get a laugh a little bit this morning, or roll your eyes, which is also a good exercise for your ocular muscles. So I heard the story. Of a preacher and a taxi driver. They both go to heaven. And they get there and they walk through the pearly gates, and St. Peter says, let me show you to your rooms. So he walks the preacher to his room first, and he opens the door, and the preacher noticed the most humble, small, tiny room he's ever seen. It barely fits a bed. And then he just happens to tag along, and they go to the taxi driver's room, and he opens up the room, and it is the most ridiculous sized room you've ever seen, full of all the luxuries and everything that would make you just happy to be there. And the preacher was really upset. He goes, I spent a lot of time in my life making sure that people can hear. I had that little grumpy thing. So he walks down to St. Peter and says, hey, how come I get a small room and this guy gets this really big room? And Peter looks at the preacher and says, well, things up here are based on merit. When you were preaching, there was people who were just sleeping. But when he was working and driving, people were praying. You can share that amongst your friends. There's no segue. It's just one of those things that we got to do. So today we're going to be talking about love, and it's an adventure. And I was really thinking about this last couple of weeks about what's Christ calling us to do when it's following Him. And a lot of times it's in some way that is not in your nature. It's to share that love that He's given you with other people. And in doing that, you may find yourself in a crazy adventure. What keeps us from doing those things, though? There are times where we really want to go out after something. Maybe, something simple. Maybe you want to go on this really nice hike that you were thinking about that has this view at the end that you've been wanting to see your whole life. But something keeps telling you, that's kind of dangerous, or you don't have time to do it, or that's too adventurous for you, but you really want to see it one day and you've never gotten to it. Or maybe it's just, a challenge in your life to step out of your comfort zone, to stand before somebody, maybe share your witness or your testimony. There are so many different things that you could be called to that you aren't noticing because maybe you're afraid. So I want you to look at this idea of, I don't want you to be so scared that you're going to miss something great. I don't want you to be so afraid to be a part of something great. We read in the Bible that God created us to be His masterpiece, to do His good works that He's already prepared for us to do. He has prepared for us great things that we are already meant to be doing. But that doesn't mean He's prepared great things to you that He's going to force you to do. It is a choice for you to get up and to say, yes, I want to do that. We read this for our scripture reading, and I think this should give us some encouragement. It says, don't be afraid, for I am with you. Don't be discouraged, for I am your God, and I will strengthen you, and I will help you. I will hold you up with my victorious right hand. Like God is sitting there with you, just telling you, there's going to be some things that I'm going to call you to do. And they are not going to be something that you want to do, maybe. Maybe it's something that's going to scare you to death. But He says, don't worry about it, because I'm with you. I'm going to walk with you. I'm not just going to set it up and step back and let you trip and fall and stumble. Instead, He says, not only will I be with you, but I'm going to hold you up. How many of you have little children or have had little children at some point in your life? Do you remember that stage right around walking? Almost 2. They get the big head syndrome going. Maybe it's just me, I had a huge head. where they get their head ahead of them. You know they're falling at some point. But what do you do as a parent? You're really excited that they're taking some steps on your own. And right when they're about to fall, what do? We pick them up. We steady them again, and we let them go again until they get it down where they can do it without help. We as parents love our kids so much that we, hopefully, you don't just sit back and laugh as they fall. That would just be sad. Hopefully we love our kids so much that as they start to stumble and as you see them getting too ahead of themselves, we get over there to pick them back up, straighten them back out and say, I'm with you. I'm not going to let you fall. You remember the first time you learned to ride a bike? Your parents lied to you, right? Like mine? And they're holding your seat and they get you going. They're like, I'm right behind you. I'm still holding on. But they're not. And then you look back and you fall, but you know what they do? They run over real quick. You did so great. You were doing it by yourself. I'm going to pick you back up. We're going to do it again. There's something about having that the comfort and the confidence of knowing that there is somebody guiding you, holding you up, and keeping you safe so that you can go and do it even better than what you're doing on your own. With the guidance of God with you, there shouldn't be fear within you as well. That is Satan's greatest trick for you. Because what fear is, it's the absence of faith. And so when we have fear guiding our life, what we're really saying is, I don't have faith that God will help see me through where I feel He's calling me to go in my life. And instead, I have to do it myself. And I don't know if you are as headstrong as I am, but I was that guy a lot. Oh man, things are falling apart. I guess I need to fix things. I need to do it better. I need to get myself together. And you know what happens the more and more I try to do that? It was like trying to eat ice cream at Leatherby's, you know, the big one. You take that one scoop out of the bottom and it falls on you because they want to laugh at you trying to eat this big thing of ice cream by yourself. The more and more I try to scoop my way out, the more of my life would fall on me until I said, God, I know that you're with me. And I know that you have plans for me. Help me to surrender these things to you. Today I want us to get ready for an adventure. And I want us to look at the closest people to Christ. The closest people to Christ were Peter, Andrew, and who else? Two other brothers. James and John. These were, mainly it was just Peter, James, and John. But, you know, we'll throw Andrew in there because he's one of the first to be called as well. These are Jesus' inner circle. And I want you to see what Jesus does when he calls these men to follow him. What he does is he starts to walk after he was teaching, and he sees some guys cleaning out their nets. And what he says to them is interesting because they are doing something that they know. Peter, James, and John, and Andrew were fishermen. They knew how to fish. It was in their family. And probably generationally, they were just fishing people. They knew where to go, how to throw the nets out. They knew how to clean them and gut them. They probably knew how to sell them. I'm sure they knew the ins and outs of what fishing is. And Jesus uses what they were good at, what they knew, to call them to him. And when he calls them for an adventure, these guys do what we don't do. Let's read it. So it says, as Jesus was walking beside the Sea of Galilee, he saw two brothers, Simon, called Peter, and his brother Andrew. They were casting a net into the lake, and they were fishermen. It says, come and follow me, Jesus said, and I will send you out to fish for people. How cool is this? At once, they get up and they leave. This is an adventure that I think none of us here are really ready for. Could you imagine if Jesus came and he called you and he says, hey, you know, maybe you're working on, I don't know, whatever all of you do here. You're working on a computer screen. Come and I will make you type, or I don't know. You can't really translate that one. I will come and network you with other people. Or I will make you a firefighter for men, whatever it is for you. Whatever you are doing that you know that you are good at, and Christ comes and calls you and says, now I want you to come and I'm going to give you all these skills that you've already learned, and we're going to use this to bring people to God. What would you do? Many of us would probably say, that's awesome. How do I fit that in my life? Where does that fit in, Jesus? How do I get my time card out and I look at my schedule and I say, okay, well, I've worked from this time to this time. Maybe I can pencil you in to do this job that you have for me. Somewhere around, 5 o'clock when I get off. And then I'm going to be tired and I need to eat dinner. So maybe after dinner and after my favorite show. Well, because my favorite show is now on Netflix, I got like 8 more seasons to go before I can just pencil you in. And this is what we do. And then we come to church, though, and say, I did everything that he's called me to do. good about myself. These men left everything. And James and John even show this even greater, because they tell us that they leave not just everything, but they even leave their family. Going from there, he saw two other brothers, James, son of Zebedee, and his brother John, and they were at a boat with their father Zebedee. They were preparing their nets, and Jesus called them, and immediately they left the boat and their father, and they followed him. I have an active imagination. I just see them jumping out of the boat and swimming, but they're probably not really that far out. They probably just walk onto the dock and take off with Jesus. But it makes a greater picture, because basically what they're doing is they are leaving the life that they know, and they know very well, to go and follow a man that is teaching something that is so different than they've ever heard before, that is convicting their hearts to say, I'm ready to go with you on this wild adventure. For some of us, it's called us to the Ukraine or other places. For some of us, it's called us to be really, really good parents. Or a single parent, because the other one left. Maybe it's called us to raise a grandkid that we weren't ready to raise, because that's where God's called our adventure to be. Maybe for you, it was just volunteering in a school so that other kids who don't have parents know that there's somebody there who loves them, even though they don't really know them. I don't know what your adventure is going to be. For these men, it was to leave everything, to follow Jesus, and to be ready for a crazy ride. And to accept it. And they did. I don't know if you've been like me, but there are times when following Jesus just doesn't make sense. It doesn't. You know, even when Jesus is telling them to stop what they're doing and follow him, he doesn't map it all out for them. He doesn't fill in all the blanks. He doesn't say, here's what we're going to do, this is how we're going to do it. Trust me, it'll be fine, it'll be safe. Could you imagine if he told all these guys, hey Peter, when you die, you're going to get crucified upside down. You still in? You guys are going to spend a lot of time in jail. You're probably going to get beat up a little bit. But it's all going to be worth it, so just keep on coming. He doesn't tell them all this. They know what they're in for as they go along. But what he says is, man, guys, come follow me, and we're going to do some really great things for my Father. Are you up for it? Are you ready? So I've learned kind of how to decipher when people are trying to give you advice and you can trust it, and when people are giving you advice and you should probably just look the other direction. In my life, I've noticed that the best, this is just for me, maybe it's different for you and your meter and how to trust people and how not to. But for me, when people are trying to give me advice and there's no gain in it for them whatsoever, usually you can trust that. If somebody's going out of their way because they love you and care for you, they're trying to help you to have a better go of your life, and there's nothing in it for them, you can probably trust that. Jesus was going out of his way to let these men know, I have a future for you that is eternal. I want you to trust it, and I want you to follow me. And they were willing to get up and go. Following Jesus is not, it doesn't always make sense. It is really, truly an adventure. For me, I had many opportunities where I knew that God was calling me in a direction, and I looked at him and I made excuses of why it wasn't my time. I kind of put categories for us as people, and I associate it with prophets, okay? I think there's some of us who are like Moses, there's some of us who are like Jonah, and there's some of us who are like Isaiah. And I kind of lump all of us into one of these things. Jonah, when God called him to go on an adventure, I want you to go to Nineveh. When you get to Nineveh, which is an awful, evil, wicked place, I want you to tell them to repent, and they're going to have this much time, and if they do it, my grace will be with them. And he said, no thanks. Jonah, when he was called, he was a runner. He didn't make an excuse. He just said, I don't want to do that. And he went the other direction. Moses was called to lead God's people out of Egypt. Moses, I want you to lead my people out of captivity. I want you to lead them to the promised land. A land that I have for them, a land that is ready. And Moses says, well, I'm not the right guy. They won't listen to me. And God says, don't worry about it. I will give you the right words. And then he says, well, I have this problem with speaking. I don't speak that well. Don't worry about it. I'll send your brother with you. He'll help you. I'll give you the right words. And he gives excuse after excuse after excuse. And then you have a guy like Isaiah. When God says, who shall I send? And I can almost see the giddiness in it, like, the kid that wants to answer the question because they're the really happy one in class. If you've ever taught a class, they're the one that usually sits right up front, and they can't wait to, tell you. They're the one that wants to answer every question, not let everybody else answer. And he's just going, ooh, 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 here I am. Send me. I'm ready. Send me, send me, send me, send me. I'll do it. I'm ready. The same outcome, here's the thing that I need you to understand. When God calls you to this great adventure, regardless of whether or not you say yes or no, the outcome is going to be the same. God doesn't need you. And that, for some of us, may be a harsh reality. God doesn't need you. He loves you. He wants you to be a part of it, but He does not require you to get what He wants done. Jonah ran away from God. God pursued him. Jonah tried to sleep away his desire to do what God wanted to do. If I just fall asleep on this boat, maybe it'll all go away. God rocks the boat. What's going on? Everybody's praying to all their gods, and He gets up and says, you got to throw me in the water. You know what He said? Big fish gets him. He's scared. He says, God, okay, I'm ready to do what you're going to do. Thank you for saving me. And he goes out. He still doesn't do it with a heart that is saying, I want these people to know God. Instead, he goes out there and says, just wait. You're going to regret that you were such a patient God, that you're so loving. But you know what happens? God's grace still works in the situation, even with a relenting person. Moses, this is the coolest transformation. And I like to think we're probably more like Moses than any of these things, which is, it's not a bad thing, as long as you allow God to transform you. Moses goes from a murderer, a confused identity, being raised by Pharaoh, but yet being Hebrew, trying to figure out his place, trying to help his people the best he can, does something stupid and runs away. And God transforms that man to what He calls His friend and the most humble man to ever walk the earth. Because God wore him out, and finally He says, I'm ready for this adventure. And this was not an easy adventure. Because if you know Moses, he sits there and says, why did you give me this people? Why did you give me these people? Can I get a different one? And then he goes to bat for those same people and says, just wait, you did have this promise. Don't kill them all and start over with me. But Moses had something in his crazy trek where he gets it more and more clear every step of his journey. But you know what happens with him too? He doesn't see the promised land. And the people don't get there. But God's will still gets done, even with relenting people. Because He sends Joshua. People get it going. Isaiah does some things that I hope that we can all aspire to be and get to. When God calls you, you say, I am here, and I am ready. Every time I've run from God, every time I've known that He's called me to something, He's got me there anyways. So at the end, which I'm still pretty young, so I feel like I'm doing okay on this maturity thing a little bit. I say, you know what, God? You're obviously putting me here for something. I'm ready this time. I'm not going to give you an excuse. I'm just going to try. We're going to hope that it works out. When we went on this trip to Africa, right after Renee and I got married, we had a young man who came with us he was a bone marrow donor for his sister. She had leukemia. She ended up looking like she was getting better, and then she ended up passing away. And it was devastating to him. And I think it's affected his faith a little bit. But at this moment, he still wanted to go, and he felt like his sister would love for him to go. And so we said, do you want to go? Do you want to go on this trip? We're going to go, and we're going to serve God, we're going to do the best we can. He says, I want to go, I just don't know how it's going to work. You got to raise $3,000 to go, because it's a 23-hour flight. It's not close to South Africa. We want that. And he said yes. And we prayed about it, and we put some things out, and in a day, one person gave enough money for 3 people to go. And it was just a cool thing that when you know that you're going to do something that God is calling you to, that has nothing to do with you, it has everything to do with what love does for other people. He makes a way. He tells you, I'm with you, and I want to hold you up with my victorious right hand, so that there's no other way to explain what happened for you than to say, God was with me here. And this adventure is going to be amazing. Our adventure was amazing. It was a great adventure, that one. But the disciples know what a great adventure looks like because they were with Jesus. They saw him do some crazy things. And this is one of my favorites that had to have been the jaw-dropping moment for them to understand that, okay, this is just the tip of the iceberg with what life is going to be like on this journey with Jesus. And so, if you have a Bible, Matthew chapter 15, 32 through 38, you know the story. You do. It's really familiar. But I want you to look at it in the eyes of now you are the one being called to an adventure, and you are faced with some impossible things, and you're allowing your faith to conquer your fear. So it says, as Jesus called his disciples to him, he said, I have compassion for these people. So Jesus was speaking, getting real tired, on a boat. He gets off the boat, there's still all these people around to see him speak. And Jesus shows what love does. So I want you to always take that aspect of what we're going to talk about to know, in this case, what love is doing on this adventure is showing compassion to the people. So he said, I have compassion for these people. They have already been with me 3 days and have had nothing to eat. I don't want to send them away hungry, or they may collapse on the way. His disciples answered, where can we get enough bread in this remote place to feed such a crowd? I love when people ask Jesus something so outlandish, because it makes sense. That's actually very logical. There's thousands of people here. We don't have anything to feed them. How are we going to make this happen? How many loaves do you have? 7. And a few small fish. So he told the crowd to sit down. Then he took 7 loaves of fish, and when he gave thanks, he broke them, and he gave them to his disciples. And then they turned to the people. They all ate and were satisfied. Afterwards, the disciples picked up 7 basketfuls of broken pieces that were left over. Do you see? And then it takes it one step further. Not counting the women and children, there's 4,000 people. 4,000 people. We're out in the middle of nowhere. You always want to stop and talk. This is what I get blamed for with our family. We never get out of church on time. You always want to talk to somebody. You just want to stay a little bit longer. Jesus, we're tired. We don't have enough to feed these people. I know that you love them. I know you have compassion. But what we're really saying is, this is bigger than you. I don't even think you can do this. And I think Jesus kind of inside laughs a little bit. And he just goes, well, let's just try it out. How much bread do you have? 7? Cool. It's a good number. 7's a good number. It's a magic number. You got some fish? Cool. Let me show you something. And he prays and he gives thanks for it. He's thankful that he has something to give. And then he starts breaking it and passing it out and breaking it and passing it out. And could you imagine, you already know what you have, and they're going down the aisles like we're passing our communion, but it's not just a tiny little bit of cracker, because that would be sustainable, even though we all like to take the smallest bit. They're breaking bread, and everybody's eating, and everybody's full. And afterwards, they're going, that was incredible. Like, how did we feed all these people? And Jesus said, hey, let's clean up, guys. Let's not leave a mess. And they go, 7 baskets full. It's like the exclamation mark for all of them. I'm Jesus. And what love needed to do in this situation was have compassion on some hungry people. Let's feed them. And I'll make it work. There may be a time where compassion for other people may be you offering to house somebody. And that is one of the more uncomfortable things, because you're opening up your sacred place to somebody else so that they may have a place to stay for a night. Maybe it's helping out a relative that you really don't like to be around. Love shows compassion in the way we show Christ's love to other people in their need at that time. Even when we think it can be impossible, Jesus says, nothing is impossible. This is the beginning of the adventure. Do you know what these guys have seen when they followed Jesus? I'm pretty sure at the end of the day, even the way that some of them had to go, they could still go back and say, I would do that again in a heartbeat. I would have done it earlier if I could have. I would have not had the doubt that I had before when I denied Jesus while he was up there getting ready to be crucified. I would have been more bold because I know that he took the cross and he conquered it and he rose from the grave. I know what my Jesus is capable of, And when he calls me, I wish and pray that I would have just been more bold to do what he's called me to do. He doesn't promise an easy road. He doesn't, but he does promise you an adventure. I've been on some pretty cool adventures, some recently, and I can look back. How many of you, I just want to throw this out there because you look like the adventurous type. How many of you have climbed something like Half Dome? Not that adventurous. How many of you have walked down the street? I'm just kidding. How many of you have ever served in a community that you wish, you didn't know if you would get out of it safely? How many of you have been to a place where you didn't know how you were going to get home? You got there. Trying to reach where you guys are at. Renee and I took a nice hike just recently. And the coolest thing about it wasn't getting to the point we wanted to go. It was getting to the end on time. We were in a time crunch. We had to do 8 miles in a very short time. And at the end, all the things we saw were really cool. But nothing is a better feeling than finishing and knowing you did it in the time that you were given. Because guess what? We are not guaranteed that the time is going to stretch longer for us. Then you may be given an adventure, and there may be a time on it that you have no idea what that time is. And really all they're saying is, you got today. Tomorrow is a blessing if you get it, but what you do have, what you know you have because you're here, is today. What are you doing? Are we accepting it? Are we being challenged to show a love that does something? And at the end, you're proud of it. He said, not only did we go on the adventure, we didn't just sit on the sideline and just watch them do the cool stuff. It wasn't like we rode on the safari and just watched everything. No, we actually trekked through. We go with. We are a part of it. And at the end, when all of this is done and you're stumbling in, you're not going to be like the preacher in the joke with your little tiny room. Instead, Jesus is going to be with his arms open, and he's going to say, well done, my good and faithful servant. I have a room prepared for you. But first, let's stop with the buffet. Because my dad's table is very big, and you look hungry. This is what we have. This is a promise. And all he's asking for is for you to say, I'm ready. Who are you going to send? Your hand should be up. You should be on your tippy toes. And you should say, here I am. Send me. Let's go to God and pray. Dear Father, you're an awesome and incredible God. We can't fathom your glory and your majesty, but what we can get a glimpse of is that you love us. You love us so much that you would die for us, but more than that, you would take all of our sins, all of our insecurities, all of our fears, you would nail it to a cross, you would take it to the grave, and you would rise from them. To give us a hope that says, I have taken these from you. Just come and follow me. Here's a cross. Pick it up, deny yourself, take on me each day, and your life will change. It won't be easier. It won't be a rags to riches story, but it truly is, because we become inheritance of the King, creator of everything. We get to be your adopted sons and daughters. That when you see us, you see your son, because we are covered by his blood that washes us perfect. God, I pray that we live that life understanding the calling that you give to us is never too big for us, because nothing is too big for you. You are with us. So give us that comfort and that confidence to walk with you each day, choosing you over this world. Pray all these things.